Hey guys, how you doing? Courage here. Alright, so this video I'm about to make right now is really addressing medical students. I made one previously talking about my first year experience in nursing school, challenges I faced and I overcame them as a mature adult. But I've had my medical students I've had some medical students who have asked me on my Instagram that I don't say much about things in medicine. So I used to be a physician before I left that world and I decided to transition into nursing for personal reasons. I probably will talk about that sometime. So now I'm in nursing school. I'm currently going my third year. But this video is really to talk about how I studied for my medical licensing exam in the United States, the USMLE, and what were my strategies. Because I did all my exams within a year and I got my Ecfmg certificate in a year. So that's just what I'm about to talk about right now. So the USMLE is the United States Medical Licensing Exam, and basically those USMLE has 4 steps. So there's the step 1, USMLE step 1, which basically is talk about your basic medical sciences, all right, your anatomy, your physiology, your pathology, pharmacology, biochemistry and whatnot, all right. And then you have the step 2 clinical knowledge called the step 2 CK, that deals with things that you did in your clinical rotations, like your internal medicine, family medicine, your general surgery, obstetrics, psychiatry, pediatrics, stuff like that. And then you have this step 2 CS, clinical skills. That exam now have been phased out, but during my time I did it, and it's more or less, as the name implies, the clinical skills. Step 2 CS, it talks about your clinical skills. It assesses your clinical skills, how you take a history, how you examine a patient, what investigations you recommend initially, what follow-up plans you can develop, and how to manage the patient further. So and then there is the 4th part, which is the step 3. Some people tend to take that, at the end of the first year of residency training, and for foreign trained doctors like ourselves, all right, or like myself, we tend to some of us tend to take that prior to applying to the residency in the States, because it just improves our chances. If you do well, it may hurt your chance if you don't do well. So, but you get your Ecfmg certificate after doing the step 1, the step 2 CK, and the step 2 CS. So now with the step 2 CS phased out, there's some alternative pathways that have been developed. I can't say much about that right now with regards to the alternative. I do know one of the alternatives is to take the NAC OSCE exam in Canada, which is also just a bit more advanced form of a clinical skills exam. In my opinion, it's way lot harder. It's way lot harder than the USMLE Step 2 CS. But if you're prepared and you go for some courses, so you have the right notes to study, it's also passable. So if you do that and you pass that, then that replaces the Step 2 CS. And the other pathways of negating. The other pathways are negate the need for the CS, and you probably can find out on the USMLE website, Step 2 CS website. Okay, but I'm just here to talk about how I studied for mine. Now, people are different, and I'm not someone that really have the patience, or at least I would say during the time when I prepared for my USMLE exams, I didn't have the patience really to sit down and read it. I've never had the patience to sit down and just keep reading the textbook on and on and on, because I get distracted. I think I might have a bit of ADHD, or a lot of people say that a lot, but I think I might have a little bit of that. So I can't sit down for long and read the textbook. I'm going to fall asleep or I'll get distracted. So the way I keep myself motivated is to read for a short while, but I really do a lot of questions. And it is torture doing questions, because when you're doing questions, right, without having a strong foundation in the topic, there's a chance of getting a lot of things wrong. And if you have a competitive spirit, it doesn't feel nice to keep getting things wrong. So you'll see yourself getting frustrated, crying sometimes, and spitting out some expletives. I've done some of those things. I've had my moment of tears, anger, trashing things about just because I'm getting things wrong, and especially questions when I think I'm very sure about it and I get it wrong, But then I tell myself, if I knew all the questions in this question bank, that's what I call Q bank, and there's nothing to learn, then if I knew everything, then why am I even studying? All right. And then if I even knew everything, then it makes me question the quality of the Q question bank, because you can't know everything in medicine. There's always things to learn. So if I'm knowing so much and I know I've not done so much study, then that's probably not a good Q bank. So with regards to materials I used, I find out that I'm more efficient when I study quickly and in a short window. All right. And I think a good timeline for USMLE step is always, people will tell you, some people take 9 months. I don't know how they do that, and I credit their stamina. Some people take 6 months, which I think it's a fair amount of time to take for each of the steps. But again, I don't have that much patience. So in my case, I think I took at most 3 months per step. Right? No, I took 3 months for step 1. I think I took 4 months or 3 months for step 2 CK. And I took 10 days. 10 days I think, or 2 weeks for step 2 CS, the clinical skills exam. Now people might ask, okay, how was that possible? How did you prepare? So this was my study pattern. The question bank I use is the USMLEWORLD. All right, I feel that that's still I don't think it's outdated. I still think that's still the best Q bank to use for the USMLE. So, but if you have time and you're using the 6 months plan or even a 9 month plan, I would say the best thing to do is to do USMLEWORLD and to do Kaplan Q bank. Do both twice. Now if you did both twice, I almost feel, and you took your time to study each question, study the pattern of the question, study the right answer, study the rationale behind the wrong answer and the rationale behind the right answer, I really believe, all right, if you did that for USMLEWORLD and for Kaplan Q bank and you did it twice, I struggle to find out how you're not going to make a good score on the USMLE. It might take you at least 6 months, but I believe that by the time you get to the exam, you are used to every pattern of questions and you're on a very good road to succeeding and doing very well if you have the patience and the discipline. Now, if you're like me and you don't have that patience and that discipline, you want to work with a 3 month plan, and this is what I did. All right, so USMLEWORLD, my TV, sometimes I try to bring the volume down, so I always try to hold the remote. Alright, so what I did was, so I had a 3 month plan and I had USMLEWORLD. USMLEWORLD tend to have like maybe 2,000 questions in it, give or take 2,200. But let's work with hypothetically, let's work maybe 2,000 questions. So my plan was to do 50 questions every day. I wake up in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, and the objective for that day is to do 50 USMLE questions. Now, the challenge there is, do you want to do it by systems? By systems, I mean, do I want to do 50 cardio questions today? Do I want to do 50 GI gastrointestinal questions today? Do I just want to do 50, or do you want to do it by subject? Do I want to do 50 anatomy questions today, 50 physiology questions tomorrow? Or do you want to do integrated, whereby it's 50 questions, mixed system, mixed subject? Question 1 may be anatomy. Question 2 may be something on pathology. Question 3 may be something on pharmacology. Question 1 may be on GI. Question 2 is on skeletal system. Question 3, it's a cardio question. So in my case, I did by system. All right. So first day, I want to do 50 questions cardiovascular. So my plan was that if I did 50 questions a day, all right, finishing those 50 questions, studying the right and wrong answers in details, it might look small, but I'm telling you, 50 questions, it does take a long time, depending on your knowledge base. But really, USMLEWORLD questions are quite challenging and difficult. So it does take a long time to go through 50 questions throughout a day. So you're literally spending the whole day on that. All right. And what I noticed that I'm doing the 50 questions in tutor mode. Please, you're doing it in tutor mode, not time mode, tutor mode. All right. So I do the 50 questions in tutor mode, taking my time. And what I noticed that if you're doing 50 questions a day, and there are 30 days in a month, so 50 times 30, you would have covered 1,500 questions in a month. It's going to be intense. It's going to be stressful. But you will cover 1,500 questions in a month. And you are left with about maybe another 500 or maybe another 600 questions, which will take you like 12 days. Because 50 questions in a day, in 10 days is 500 and in 12 days is 600. So basically, give or take, in a month you finish 1,500, and in the next 12 days you finish another 600. That's 2,100 in a month and 12 days. Let's say you just throw in 2 other days here for rest and whatnot. So basically in 6 weeks, guys, in 6 weeks, you finish the USMLEWORLD by doing 50 questions each day in tutor mode. In exactly 6 weeks, you've done approximately 2,200 questions and you finished USMLEWORLD. Now what do you do again? You have another 6 weeks because 12 weeks makes 3 months. So now you have another 6 weeks. So what do we do now? You go all over again. You're gonna do it all over. It will be shocking how much things you may have forgotten when you did it the first time, and it was more stressful and more challenging the first time, but then you do it all over again the second time. But remember, the first time, every day you do 50 questions. Remember, you are not expecting to get an UWorld is very hard, so there's a chance you probably will get maybe 10 at best, maybe 20 questions out of 50 and you fail 30. So your average may be like 40% maybe, or even 30-something%, which is pretty bad. But what I expect you to do is that you should have your first aid. The first aid is a textbook that prepares you for the USMLE. It's a review book, alright? It's not a book for learning, it's more like a crash course. But what I did was I had a first aid with me. So if I had a question I got wrong, and trust me, I had a lot of questions I got wrong. When I get a question wrong, I read the explanation on UWorld. And if I feel like I can't get a hang of it, or it hasn't registered yet, I open that specific, I look at the index on first aid and look for the chapter that relates to that question, and I read and I take notes, and I look for the extra information on the UWorld that is not on the first aid, and I write the notes just in there. So the first aid is really going to come clean when you buy it, but at the end of the day it's going to be worn out, full of all kind of writings and all little scribbles everywhere, but that's just the way it goes, alright? And everybody who have done that will understand the process. So if I read something, for example, let's say I read something on psychiatry, let's say I read something on cyclothymic disorder and dysthymic disorder, depressive disorder, and dysthymic, the depressive symptoms have to have been persistent for at least 2 years. Meanwhile, cyclothymic depression is one that it occurs in cycles, whereby you have period of depressive episode, and then that goes away, and you have period of hypomanic episode. The episodes are kind of like manic, like mania, but like a subdued mania. Alright, so I've noticed that these are two kinds of depression, but one has alternating cycles, depression and hypomania, and one is just depressive episode but persistent for at least 2 years, which is dysthymic. And let's say I don't have those information on my UWorld question that relates to depression, then I go to that chapter in first aid and I write those little things under cyclothymic and under dysthymic depression, just those extra information on top. So you're beefing up your first aid, alright? You're adding more information. So you keep doing that, and it's a very stressful and tiring process, but it's also a learning process in itself. So by doing every question, you keep going back and forth. Like I said, it's stressful, but you're gaining knowledge and you're synthesizing knowledge in that process. It is a painful process, guys, so you need to have the right personality for it, but it works. Alright, so by the end of the day, you finish 50 questions in a day from UWorld. You've noticed the pattern, you've noticed why you got it wrong, you've noticed the right explanation, the wrong explanation. You've opened first aid and you've gone through 50 cases and you've written some extra notes on that first aid and those chapters. And then you rest, eat, sleep well, 6 hours minimum each day, and you repeat the process the next day, and this keeps going on and on and on for 6 painful weeks. 6 painful weeks. But you need to give yourself a little treat, and the treat is this. I know people have addiction to social media, so the treat can be this. For every hour of study that you achieve, you can spend 5 minutes on social media, just to get a mental break and don't feel like you're alone. Alright, what I tend to do anyways is that whenever I'm studying on my laptop, I'm studying and I'm taking my notes on first aid. For my TV, I have YouTube open on, and I look for a study with me video. Believe me guys, this works. Just put a video, a study with me. Anyone studying, just pick a study with me video and let that be playing on the background. What is happening is basically it gives you the impression that you're not alone. You're studying your laptop, solving questions and writing all day, and you're looking at the channel and you're just seeing someone studying. Alright, I've made some study with me video upon request from some of my subscribers. Alright, and it's just really me looking to the laptop for about 2 hours, and then sometimes you may get bored of watching the same video, you want to watch a different one, or you can just put it on the loop. but it helps because it gives you the impression that there's someone studying. And every time you are tired and you want to rest, you look at the TV and you see that that guy is still studying or that lady is still studying. It's like a primer, it's like a psychological primer. It just primes you to want to keep studying. So that's what I did, and that's why I always felt like my home was my library. It was always me and some dude studying or some lady studying on TV. And before you know, you find yourself kind of talking to the person. It sounds crazy, but it works. Whatever works, as long as you clear the exam. So have a study with me video playing in the background where it's kind of quiet or you're just watching someone studying. That makes you feel like studying and makes you feel not alone in the isolating process. So with that on, and you're studying, you're writing on first aid, repeat the process for 6 weeks, you will finish your word. It's going to be very painful and difficult, and your average probably will be like 40%. But now the beauty of it is that you're about to repeat the process in the next 6 weeks. Now what are you going to do? You're still going to do 50 questions. Yeah, you do 50 questions, but no longer system. It's not going to be integrated. So integrated meaning it's a mixed. Alright, that's one. And what's the second thing? It's no longer in tutor mode, guys. It's now in time mode. So now it's 50 question timed mode. You want to create the maximum time for 50 questions. And it's integrated question in time mode. And do it. And it will be amazing how you will find out that you will start noticing the patterns of the questions. There might be slight familiarity with some questions. You will notice the red flag. You notice the stem of the question. Remember, whenever you are doing a question, always read the last paragraph of the questions, quick scan of the answers before you read the entire questions. Because some questions might not be asking for the diagnosis. The diagnosis of the questions might already be in the stem of the question. So while you are reading the beginning of the question, you're seeing someone came in complaining of cough, and pleuritic, left-sided pleuritic chest pain, and then you are thinking maybe the question is going to ask you what's the diagnosis, which is most likely pneumonia. But the question may already tell you, sputum cytology and culture were done, and they find, examination were done, and they find that the patient had, dullness in the left lower lobe, dullness to percussion in the left lower lobe. So they're talking about lobar pneumonia, and the cutaneous sputum culture showed, strep pneumo or whatnot, and the diagnosis of strep pneumo, lobar pneumonia left side was made. So if you spent your whole time reading that question only to find out the diagnosis have already been given in the question, you've wasted your time. And then you come to the last paragraph and they will ask you, so which of the following is the best drug used to treat strep pneumonia? Now if you just went ahead and read the last paragraph of that question, what you would have seen was, which of the following is the best drug used to treat strep pneumonia? So that would already tell you that the stem of the entire question probably was talking about a patient who came in with symptoms relating to pneumonia, and some tests and everything was done, and they found out it was strep pneumo. And now the question is asking which of the following is the best drug used to treat strep pneumo. I mean, it won't be as easy as that, but you get the idea. By reading the last paragraph of the question, it has given you a mental preparation and a mental insight into what the entire question is about, and then you already know that the options will probably be about medications. So why you not go back to read the entire question? You already also think about what's the best drug used to treat strep pneumo. But you read the entire question just to see if there was any other thing given or any other red flag, but you're just scanning through. So that is something that you have to practice because it's all about time management on the USMLE. It's a 7-8 hour exam. You need to be very fast in reading questions. And one of the shortcuts is to read the last paragraph. I can't emphasize enough on that. Sometimes the last paragraph may not make sense and then you want to read the second to the last paragraph. And sometimes you find yourself reading from the last question upward to the beginning. But it's always a safer bet than reading from the beginning going all the way down. Especially with long questions. And sometimes, like in step 2 CK, we'll talk about that later, where you have lab reports. So it depends on people. Sometimes I jump straight to the lab report. And from the lab report, I can always have an idea of what is going on. I look at the lab report and I see an hemoglobin of 7. That means anemia. Or regardless whether it's male or female, it's less than 12 or 13. It's 7, it's anemia. What kind? And I see the MCV is like 70. I already know it's microcytic anemia. I'm just looking at the lab result. And then I'm already thinking what are the likely causes of microcytic anemia. And I'm thinking of your LFTs. Alright, so for example, you know that your L is like lead poisoning, can cause microcytic anemia with an MCV less than 70. You know that your F can be iron deficiency, which can cause microcytic. Alright, and your T is thalassemia, which can also cause microcytic. Alright, your your LFTs, and the S is sideroblastic anemia, which can also cause microcytic anemia. So those are your LFTs. These are the common cause of microcytic anemia, which by definition is an MCV less than what? Less than 80. But you have an MCV of 70. So if I just saw a lab result with a big stem of question, and I went for the lab result first, a blood result, I can already tell from this lab result this patient has microcytic anemia, and I already know that it's going to be one of the LFTs. So then I am trying to look at then I can read the question, all right, the full question after looking at the lab result first, to see if there are any features. I expect the patient to have features or symptoms of anemia, but I'll be looking for any other key information that can narrow it down to one of these 4 possibilities. This is me assuming that they're asking for what's the diagnosis. So if I see a lab result in a question, I want to look at the lab result first, and then I want to look at the last paragraph of the question, or I can look at the last paragraph and then look at the lab result, and then I read the stem of the question. Alright? Because sometimes from the lab result and the last, what if I just saw the lab result and I just saw the last paragraph asked me, which of the following is the likely diagnosis? And I looked at the options. Remember, I'm expected to see lead poisoning, iron deficiency, thalassemia, or sideroblastic anemia. And I saw just one of those in there as the cause of microcytic anemia, and every other option there were causing macrocytic or normocytic. I don't even need to look at the stem. I've only found one thing that causes microcytic in there. That's likely the answer. But if time allows, you still look at the stem. So again, starting from below, going upward, is also a good strategy. So these are some strategies I cultivated when I was preparing for my USMLE and when I was doing UWorld on tutor mode, trying to find out ways to be fast. Alright? So I don't know if I'm going older, and I'm sorry. Maybe I'm too loud. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm too loud as well. But yes. So 50 questions by systems in the first 6 weeks, supplementing with first aid, tutor mode. Alright? And in 6 weeks you would have completed it, and you repeat it all over. Say 50 questions integrated now into mixed time mode for the next 6 weeks. You likely complete it before the next 6 weeks, but let's say you were kind of slow, so you did it exactly for another 6 weeks, still with first aid again. So that's 3 months. So you were like, okay, Courage, now we've done it for 3 months, so what now? What now? Now you've done it for 3 months, good job. Now the next step is really critical. First aid tend to have 2 assessment exam, mock assessment, and they're normally like a 4-hour mock exam. So it's supposed to simulate the USMLE, but the USMLE is like 7 to 8 hours questions, 8-hour exam, and a lot of questions. So you need to appreciate that the first aid is only for 4 hours. At least it was for 4 hours the mock exam during my time. So what you're going to do is you would do the first assessment. Once you finish the second 6 weeks, that's 3 months done, then you give yourself a 1-day break, and then you do the first assessment. The first assessment you're doing, it needs to simulate the hour of your USMLE. So if your USMLE exam is starting 8 a.m. in the morning, then always do your mock assessment at exactly the same time. So you can program your brain to start thinking fast at that certain time. Because our brain gets reconditioned when we study. Alright? Some people do mock exams in the evening, but then they have their USMLE actual exam on the morning. So your brain won't be awake, it won't be thinking as fast because it's programmed to think fast in exam mode in the evening. So in other words, time your mock exams to be exactly the same time as your actual exam. Try to simulate the exam condition. Alright? Try to make your study place look like a cubicle. Alright? No distraction, nothing distracting. Just try to simulate an exam condition and make sure the timing is synonymous. It's 8 a.m. your exam is. Let your mock exam be 8 a.m. Now you do the first mock, which is 4 hours. Pace yourself through. Finish the mock in 4 hours and see what your score is. Don't be discouraged. Even if you are in 60th percentile, don't be discouraged. Remember the USMLE, we always say with the USMLE, we tend to, like for me with the USMLE, whatever score I get in the USMLE, I always tell myself it's plus or minus 10. Alright? Or sometimes, to be fair, I say plus or minus 5. But for the most part, plus or minus 10. Plus or minus 10. So whatever score you have, you can minus 10 from that, or you can add 10 to it, and that will tell you what you get. So if somebody got the 220 on the step 1, on the mock exam, it means that your score on the USMLE might be 210 or 230. All right, that's range 210 to 230. And it's not bad. It could even be more. There are outliers where it could even be much higher. Most likely even higher, because your U word is very hard. So if you had a 220 on the U word, then your range on the actual exam will be like 210 to 230. So, which is pretty okay. It means you're passing. So that's the first assessment. You do the first assessment after the 3 months, take a day off, and then you do the first assessment. Do it in the morning, the same time of your exam if you're in morning session. And once you finish the assessment, use 2 to 3 days to go through the entire mock exam to review it. So the mock exam was done on the first day and you used 3 days to review it. That's 4 days for the first assessment. Then you do the second assessment, which is another 4 hours. Alright? Again, same thing, do it for 4 hours and use another 3 days to review it. That's another 4 days. That's 8 days. Okay. Then what else? You do the latest MBME form exam. You buy the MBME form, do the latest MBME form, just one. Now you really, normally I couldn't review during my time, but maybe there's a review possibility now, I don't know. Just do the MBME, it takes you 1 day to do it, and I think it's also 4 hours as well. So you've done that. I would anticipate that your score is increasing as you're doing this, but even by 5 or 10 points. Alright, which is good. And if it's not increasing and staying in that range, it's still good, you are not failing. As long as you are not failing, that's good. And you do the MBME. Take 2 days to just get through that and review that. So you've noticed that after 3 months, you've done 4 days for the first assessment, another 4 days for the next assessment, and then for the MBME, 2-3 days. So 13 days, you've covered 2 USMLEWORLD assessments and 1 MBME form, the latest form. That's 13 days. Now guys, after that, take 1 day to rest. You've done 3 assessments. 1 day to rest makes it 14 days. That's 2 weeks, 3 assessments, 3 mock assessments done. All within 4 hours, all for 4 hours assessment. And you rest 1 day, that's 2 weeks. On the 15th day, please, on the 15th day, just Kaplan used to sell their mock exam, which is an 8-hour length exam. I don't know if they still sell it in isolation, but if they still sell it in isolation, please do an 8-hour mock exam, because you're trying to prepare your mind for that mental marathon that you're going to go through on the exam. Because if you don't do an 8-hour exam, what likely happens is that you go on the USMLE day and your brain is only prepared for 4 hours. And then you're doing so great, and after 4 hours, your brain is tired. But then you have 3 more hours to go, or even 4 more hours to go. But your brain has not ventured into that extent, because the marathon that has been running 4 hours. It's not accustomed to 8 hours, and you find that your brain starts slowing down. The processing speed starts going down, and everything becomes a struggle. So you need to tease your brain a little bit to run the extra mile, because it's not a master of 4 hours. Maybe with some mental reserve for another 2 hours or 1 hour. So it can go 5 hours, but it can't go 8 hours. So if Kaplan sells their 8-hour mock simulated mock exam, if they still sell it, then it's worth it. Just buy it. Just buy it and just do it. Alright, so that's what I would advise. Buy the Kaplan mock and do it in a whole day. It's going to be brutal, but just do it. Just to get through that journey. And then see what the score is. Now, it doesn't really matter much about Kaplan's scores, because Kaplan's scores tend to be plus or minus 15. These are arbitrary numbers, what I did during my time. Whatever score I get, because I tend to score better in Kaplan, because they're a bit easier than UWorld. But I wasted myself with plus or minus 15 with Kaplan. But the aim of that 8 hours is to get through that 8-hour barrier. Alright? You need to time your break. Right? So what I tend to do is that people are different, but for me, the first 2 hours, I don't take a break. I finish the first 2 hours, I pace through. I pace through the first 2 hours, and after the first 2 hours, I take a 10 minutes break. And then the third hour, after the third hour, I take a 5 minutes break. And after the fourth hour, I take a 20 minutes lunch break. So the first hour, I don't take any break. The second hour, then I take a 10 minutes break. After the third hour, I take a 5 minutes break, that's 15 minutes. And after the fourth hour, I take a 20 minutes break, and that's 35 minutes break. That 20 minutes break is your lunch break, right? Then I come for my 5th hour. After my 5th hour, I take a 5 minutes break. and that's 40 minutes. Then after my 6th hour, I take another 5 minutes break, which is 45 minutes. I think that's all the break you have. And I go for my 7th hour and I'm done. You always have a bottle of water to drink. Don't drink too much so you don't always feel the need to pee. So you just take a sip and you continue. Alright? Yeah. So that was my experience. The painful thing was the screen of the light kept burning my eyes. My eyes were so dry. Not much I can do about that, but that was just the situation. So yes, so that was my plan and that was what I did. Alright? So I know I used 3 months, but the plan I've given to you now. So the Kaplan mock is 8 hours. You do it in 1 day and you take about 3 days to review. Now I know that now it's looking like you're taking 3 months. It almost sounds like 3 months and 3 weeks ish. Yeah, so once you take 3 days to review the Kaplan, rest for 2 days, like just rest. Really don't read anything, just rest. And what are you going to be doing? Sleep. Just sleep as much as you can for 2 days. On the 3rd day, go and do your step 1. Alright? I know there's the pressure, there's the anxiety to want to read as much as you can just the last night. You're like, forget what Courage said, I'm gonna read all night, and you are wasting energy. There's really nothing new you can learn in those other 2 days. You've been doing this for 3 months, you've done how many questions, how many practice, think of how much questions you've covered already. What your brain needs is just 2 days of sleep so it can feel fresh. And on the 3rd day, really go and do the step. You are not going to feel ready. You're never going to feel ready. But trust the scores you've been getting and your assessment. You've not been failing. What was my experience? To be honest with you, and I can be very honest, when I did my step 1, it was funny because it wasn't really funny, but what was funny was I could have sworn that there were so many questions I saw, and I was like, did these people just copy and paste UWorld on the exam? I could have sworn that some of those questions were copy and paste from the Kaplan mock that I did. So what I noticed on the exam was that the USMLE had the length of Kaplan questions, which were so long, but had the difficulty level of USMLEWORLD. The USMLE exam has the length of questions that Kaplan sets, but the difficulty degree of questions of USMLEWORLD. Because USMLEWORLD is very short stem questions. At least during my time, the questions were very short stem, but they were so difficult, 2 to 3 step level thinking. While Kaplan questions were all back but no bites. They were so large and voluminous, so you have to learn how to read through it. But if you can read through it quickly, you find that it's actually very easy. The length is intimidating, but it's actually easy. Some people get lost in the entire reading, entire length of the question. So the USMLE was the length of Kaplan question, but the ease, but the difficulty level of USMLEWORLD is. I wish it was easy. So really that's what it was. Which is why I feel that it's good to study the difficulty level of UWorld and then try to get used to the length of question by doing an 8-hour mock from Kaplan. And then go and do your step. I can't promise because I'm not a salesman, but I think you really struggle not to do well on the exam. You are not going to feel ready. No one ever feels ready. You should be worried if you feel too ready. It's a battle. Go there and give it all you have. Like really go there, but be smart. Don't go there gong on and want to breeze through 7 hours. You will burn out. Discipline. This is why you should have started like this. Know how to read a question. Take advantage of your break. Your breaks are very important. Alright? It's going to feel like that clock is going too fast. You need to keep track on time. Keep track of the time. Calculate how much you have for the exam. Calculate the total number of questions you have on the exam. And divide it to find out how much time you have per questions. It usually comes to about 90 minutes. At least during my time, I think it was between 72 seconds to 90 seconds per question, which is 1.5 minutes for a question. Now, I'm not going to allocate 1.5 minutes to every question because there are some questions that are quite straightforward and easy that I can answer in 30 seconds. And if I can do that in 30 seconds, then that gives me an extra minute to add on to a next question, which might be the whole screen that has lab result, x-ray and whatnot. So just because it feels like every question is 72 seconds or 90 seconds, doesn't mean you take your sweet time with a question. If you feel that you've gotten a question right and it's in 30 seconds and you're like, it can't be so easy, it probably is that easy. Because there are some questions that are 1-step thinking, there are some questions that are 2-step, some questions that are 3-step thinking. They all vary to create a balance. Alright? If you're getting very difficult, and the question is an adaptive exam. If you're doing very well, alright, then it keeps shifting and giving you more and more challenging questions. But you are probably scoring and doing so well. If you notice that a lot of your questions are becoming too ridiculously easy, and this is not a case of you, maybe you're just too smart and everything is easy. No, like, it's becoming just one step. What's the diagnosis? What's the diagnosis? It's just one step. Sometimes it might not sound good. It might mean that you're missing a lot of things. So the questions, the exam's adapting itself to give you a chance of doing well. Right? But if you're doing a lot of hard questions and you're getting there and it's getting harder and harder, if it's getting harder and harder and harder and you're actually a good student, most likely you're doing pretty well. So don't get scared. Because when you fail the very hard one, then the next question might become a bit easier. But you would want the question to be getting harder and harder and harder. It means you're most likely doing well. That's been my experience. When the exam seems so difficult, you probably have done well. If the exam is so damn easy for you, you might really be a genius, or the most likely chance that probably you were not doing so well. And that's why everything was becoming more and more simplistic, just to try and get you some points. Alright? But again, these are all my anecdotal experience, and I can only speak for myself. But the take-home message here, and I know this turned out to be a very long video, but the take-home message here is study as much as you can. Alright? I don't know how long I've really talked in this video, 30 something minutes. I should probably wrap this up. So that's really how I studied for my step 1, and it's exactly the same way I studied for my USMLE step 2 CK. The step 2 CS was a different ball game. It's a shame that is really not implemented anymore, because I found it a lot easier than the Canadian Mrcp. But the step 2 CS, really, all I used was first aid for the step 2 CS. The cases that were in there, that was all I studied. And I had a partner, God bless her, she's a psychiatrist now. She was my partner, you know, we trusted each other, and then we went through the first aid cases. And we finished the case, we finished the case in roughly 1 week. We went through every case, we took roles as doctor and patient, went through every case, and we did everything. First of all, non-time mode, and then we did everything in the time mode. We practiced our patient notes separately, you know. And really, we did that in a week, and we were ready. And we had our exam in the same center. Did our exam. When we were done, we already knew we've passed. And the exam came, and it was great. It was really, I honestly felt it was the easiest of all the USMLE exam. It really came down to how you can fake confidence. They didn't really care much about how good you are and what you're doing. It's about, do you look like you know what you're doing? So you just need to fake it. And if you're really good in acting, alright, that's really all. So that's what makes it different from the Canadian exam. With all due respect, because the Canadian exam, you need to know your stuff. The examiner is there. There's a metric they're looking at. He's looking at what you're doing, how you're doing, your rationale behind. It's hard. Alright, the Mrcp is really hard. Alright, I did well, but it was hard. It was not something I could just go there and act. But the USMLE Step 2 CS, when I did it back then, it was really all acting. Alright, the better an actor you are, the easier you can, because you didn't have any examiner in the room back then. You just had the patient, and the patient was a standardized patient who was not a medical professional. It's a patient that is just acting as an actor, and is looking at the script and is told, if the doctor mentioned this in the history, tick correct, tick good. If the doctor placed the stethoscope on your chest in this side, mark it as done. So they are not one looking if you place the stethoscope, like if you want to check for the pulmonary, did you place it in the correct, left second intercostal? They don't care about that. They care about that in the Mrcp in the Canadian exam, but in the USMLE, if you place the stethoscope anywhere on the left, I know it probably looks like I'm touching my right on the camera, but I'm touching my left. So if you place it anywhere on the left, that is marked as you've done it. In the Canadian Mrcp, you place it in the correct place and you give a running commentary telling them where you're placing the stethoscope. So I don't think there's much reason talking about this step 2 CS because it's been phased out. I think I should more or less talk about the Mrcp. So the Mrcp, alright, National Assessment Collaborative OSCE exam, fancy name. So the pass mark for the Mrcp is 65, alright, it's between 65 to 100, but the scoring keeps changing every year, alright. But really, just to pass, you just need to pass. You just need to pass to get your Ecfmg certification. That's really all that matters. But if you're applying for residency training in Canada, then it's different because then you want to score high. But if it's just to get your Ecfmg certificate and match in the US, then you just need to pass, and that becomes a lot easier. Then you don't have to put in so much effort. But I think you should always be the best of yourself in everything you do. So aim for as high as you can score. So now I think it's between satisfactory. They keep changing the passing scale. Now it's no longer numerical. It's not like, I think, pass and high pass, or satisfactory and high satisfactory, or something like that. They keep changing it. All right, but you want to try and get high satisfactory. So basically, I think that translates to above 75, all right, which is the high pass, because the pass is 65. Then you want to get a high pass, which I think is a 75 and above. Just in case you also want to apply for residency in Canada, which is probably a dead end, to be honest with you, because it's even more difficult in Canada than the US. So the point is, get above a 65. How would you prepare for the NAC or SCI? I won't, people are different, but I didn't use the first aid step 2 CS because it wasn't the US exam. Canadian material. I definitely did not use the Toronto note. I never used the Toronto note for anything. What I did in my case, I couldn't afford going to take a course, take these courses. They have these courses that people take, and they work because people tend to pass, but these courses are very expensive. I've not been a believer of that, but if that works for you and you have the money, please do it, because it's more cost effective in the long run, because you will score well. And, you know, you don't want to do the exam again because the exams are very expensive in Canada. $2,000-$3,000 for each of these exams. They're expensive. So you want to make sure you're prepared, and the costs are around that amount as well. What I did was, a friend was nice enough to give me what they call the Basil notes, BASIL notes. You probably can Google that, maybe you'll find it. And I was given the PDF of the Basil notes. Alright, someone gave it to me, and God bless the person. And back then when I did it, the Basil notes, I had a little bit of errors, but for the most part, very detailed. And it actually was very usable for both the NAC or SCI and the Lmcc or the MCC QE2 exam. So I used the Basil notes, and yeah, it had a lot of information, but you get the hang of it, and you practice with a friend, and yes, and you get through. The Basil note is more than enough for the NAC or SCI. Probably not fully enough for the QE2. Yeah, it worked for me anyways, but yeah, so that's just that. And yeah, you study with a partner, you probably would need 2 weeks to a month studying with a partner, practicing with a partner. You need to practice, you need to learn how to give running commentary. And really, there's really no other way about clinicals is about practicing. Read a case. But for me, I read the entire case, the entire notes, probably in 10 days. And when I finished in 10 days, then I looked for some people that I paid to be my practice partner. Where I was in my location, I didn't have a lot of friends there, so I just paid some people to give me their time to be my practice partner. And sometimes laugh all you want, but sometimes I walked my pillow. I dressed my pillow up like a patient. Yeah, my pillow. Yes, I did dress my pillow up like a patient, and I walked on my pillow, examined my pillow, listened to the cardiac sounds, the heart sound on my pillow. But I was giving running commentary, and in my mind, I imagined my pillow to be a patient. And timing is of the essence. Yeah, so that's what I did. And even though I was very sick, like really, and I passed out on the day of my exam initially, but I've gone through a lot, and 20 hours flight and everything. I did my exam, and God was great. It came out well. Yeah, not an experience I want to live again. But yes, and it was fine. But so yes, the Basil note I feel is very, very good if you cannot afford taking a course. But I highly recommend you take a course. And if you take a course, then use the notes that's given to you. There are some courses in Ontario which I heard are very good. I didn't take any course, I just used the Basil note, and I think you can find it on Google, the PDF. It might be outdated now, I don't know, but I did my NAC or SCI back in, no, I did mine in 2018, and I used the Basil note, even though the note was a bit old, but I thought it was more than sufficient. So yeah, so that was that. So yeah, I apologize, or maybe I don't really apologize, I don't know. This is my information of how I prepared for the USMLE. This was my own template. It's a bit hot in here. Yeah, so if I open the curtains, then the lightning is gonna give a very bad quality for the video. So this is how I prepared for my USMLE exams, and it worked well. So I would say 3.5 months, give or take, per step. Step 1, step 2, and then the step 2 CS. The step 2, or the NAC for the NAC or SCI, at least a month, right? A month. Have someone that you can practice with. All right. Read them. Get it. Take a course. Take a course. You finish the course. Study the material. If you take a course, you will have friends and you'll be able to practice. But give yourself a month. All right. And then you do it. And I hope it all goes well. If this video helped you out, please like and subscribe and share the content. Leave comments as well. Leave recommendations, suggestions with regards to what else you'd like me to talk about. So I made a video before. I made a previous video wearing this t-shirt, and someone messaged me on Instagram. I was like, he liked the t-shirt. Thank you for that. You want to know where I got it from? It's called the Great Knot. The Great Knot. It's just a company, and yes, I am an ambassador for them. So it's a Great Knot, and they sell some nice t-shirts. And yeah, so I just buy from there. And some of my apparels, I also get some of my apparels from Anax Fashion, A-N-A-X Fashion. I'll put the link below, and you can check out the apparel and get if you want for yourself. Thanks for the compliment as well. Yeah, so really that's so because if you like, my video gets seen by more people, and hopefully this can help more people as well. I'm thinking I should make a video that talks about PA and NP school, and PA and NP being alternative to medical doctors, foreign doctors who cannot match into a residency and who want to transition to a different career, as well as other countries' exams like the UK exams and opportunity for residency in the UK, which is a more viable option for those who can't get into residency in Canada and the US. So I've done those exams as well. I've passed it. I've done the USMLE, I've passed it. I've done the Canadian exams, I've passed it. And I've also done the UK exams, and I've passed it. I'm licensed in the UK as a medical practitioner. I'm still working on the process of seeing if I can get licensed in Canada. And just follow me on my progress, and we'll see how things go. So I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for your patience, and peace. Have a nice, happy life.